Hold on to your peanuts and tray tables, folks, because the U.S. Department of Justice is taking Boeing to the metaphorical cleaners. We're not just talking about a slap on the wrist with a feather. We're talking potential criminal charges. The reason? 2 words. 737 MAX. Yes, that troubled aircraft is back in the news, and this time Boeing might be facing a reckoning of epic proportions. This isn't about faulty parts or technical glitches. This is about alleged fraud, cover-ups, and a corporation seemingly putting profits before people. The DOJ is throwing the book at Boeing, alleging that the company misled regulators about the safety of the 737 MAX. They're pushing for a guilty plea, which is about as common in corporate America as a unicorn wearing a tutu. This case goes far beyond Boeing. It's about the trust we place in corporations, the safety of air travel, and the pursuit of justice for the 346 lives lost in the 737 MAX crashes. Buckle up, because this is going to be a bumpy ride. Before we dive into the legal nitty-gritty, let's rewind to the tragedies that brought us here. In October 2018, a Lion Air 737 MAX crashed into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people on board. Less than 5 months later, an Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX met a similar fate, crashing shortly after takeoff and claiming the lives of 157 people. These weren't isolated incidents. They were gut-wrenching tragedies that sent shockwaves through the aviation world. The 737 MAX, once Boeing's cash cow, became synonymous with disaster. Investigations revealed a fatal flaw in the plane's automated flight control system, known as MCAS. The system, designed to prevent stalls, was prone to malfunctioning, forcing the plane's nose down repeatedly. But here's where things get really ugly. Evidence emerged suggesting that Boeing knew about the MCAS issues, but downplayed their severity to regulators. Internal emails and documents painted a picture of a company more concerned with profits and deadlines than passenger safety. And that, my friends, is where the DOJ enters the scene, smelling something fishier than a seafood market. The DOJ isn't messing around. They're charging Boeing with conspiracy to defraud the United States. The accusation is that Boeing deliberately misled the Federal Aviation Administration about the 737 MAX's safety features, specifically the MCAS system. This alleged deception, the DOJ argues, prevented the FAA from properly evaluating the system and ultimately led to the 2 fatal crashes. Now, why is the DOJ pushing for a guilty plea? Well, it's not just about punishing Boeing, it's about sending a message. A guilty plea is a public admission of wrongdoing, a corporate mea culpa heard around the world. It's a way of saying, yes, we screwed up, royally. A guilty plea would also likely come with hefty fines and stricter oversight for Boeing. But more importantly, it sets a precedent. It tells other corporations that cutting corners on safety, especially when lives are at stake, won't be tolerated. It's about time someone held these corporate giants accountable, don't you think? Remember when Boeing was the gold standard in aviation, a name synonymous with innovation and safety? Yeah, those days are gone. The 737 MAX crashes and the subsequent fraud allegations have tarnished Boeing's reputation like a pigeon leaving its mark on a freshly washed car. Public trust in Boeing has plummeted faster than a 737 MAX with a faulty MCAS system. Passengers are wary of flying on the MAX, even after it was cleared to fly again. Airlines are facing financial losses and public relations nightmares. And Boeing, well, they're facing a crisis of epic proportions. This isn't just about one company's image problem. It's about the erosion of trust in the entire aviation industry. When we board a plane, we place our lives in the hands of the airline, the manufacturer, and the regulators. But when that trust is broken, it's not easily repaired. It takes time, transparency, and a genuine commitment to change. The victims' families are demanding justice. In the midst of all the legal wrangling and corporate maneuvering, it's easy to forget the human cost of this tragedy. But for the families of the 346 victims, the pain is still raw, the loss still unbearable. They lost loved ones, breadwinners, friends, and dreams, and they deserve justice. These families have been fighting tirelessly for accountability and change. They've attended hearings, filed lawsuits, and shared their stories of heartbreak and anger with the world. They've demanded answers from Boeing, from the FAA, and from anyone who might have played a role in this tragedy. For these families, a guilty plea from Boeing would be a step towards justice, a recognition of the company's role in their unimaginable loss. But it wouldn't bring back their loved ones. It wouldn't erase the pain. It would, however, send a message that their lives mattered, that their deaths will not be swept under the rug of corporate greed. So what is the price of deception and potential consequences for Boeing? So, what happens if Boeing does plead guilty? Well, it won't be pretty. We're talking about potentially billions of dollars in fines, stricter regulatory oversight, and a whole lot of legal headaches. The company's already shaky reputation would take another nosedive, and its stock price would likely plummet faster than well, you know the rest. But the financial hit is just the tip of the iceberg. A guilty plea could have far-reaching consequences for Boeing's future. It could damage the company's relationships with airlines, investors, and even foreign governments. It could lead to changes in leadership, internal restructuring, and a complete overhaul of the company's safety culture. In short, pleading guilty would be a bitter pill to swallow for Boeing, but it might be the only way to start rebuilding trust, atoning for its mistakes, and ensuring that such a tragedy never happens again. Is this a turning point for aviation safety? The Boeing 737 MAX crashes and the subsequent DOJ investigation have shone a harsh light on the aviation industry. They've exposed gaps in regulation, the dangers of corporate greed, and the devastating consequences of prioritizing profits over safety. But could this crisis also be a turning point? Could it lead to meaningful changes that make air travel safer for everyone? The answer, my friends, is a resounding maybe. The DOJ's aggressive pursuit of Boeing is a sign that regulators are taking aviation safety seriously. The FAA has already implemented reforms in the wake of the 737 MAX crashes, including changes to aircraft certification processes and increased scrutiny of automated flight control systems. This tragedy has sparked a global conversation about aviation safety, corporate accountability, and the need for greater transparency in the industry. And while no one can bring back the lives lost, we can honor their memory by demanding better, by pushing for change, and by never forgetting the lessons learned from this disaster. Is corporate accountability an option or a duty? This isn't just a story about airplanes or a single company. It's a story about corporate accountability, or rather, the lack thereof. For too long, corporations have been allowed to operate with impunity, prioritizing profits over people and the planet. They've engaged in shady practices, cut corners on safety, and exploited loopholes to avoid responsibility for their actions. But the tide is turning. People are fed up with corporate greed and its devastating consequences. They're demanding more transparency, more accountability, and more ethical behavior from the companies they do business with. The DOJ's push for a guilty plea from Boeing is a sign that the era of corporate impunity is coming to an end. It's a reminder that companies are not above the law, that they have a responsibility to their customers, their employees, and the public at large. It's about time corporations are held accountable for their actions, don't you think? The long road ahead, seeking closure and change. This story is far from over. The legal battles will continue, the investigations will proceed, and the families of the victims will keep fighting for justice and closure. Boeing will face the consequences of its actions, and the aviation industry will grapple with the fallout from this tragedy. But amidst the legal wrangling and corporate maneuvering, let's not forget the human cost of this disaster. The 346 lives lost, the families shattered, the dreams extinguished. Their stories serve as a stark reminder of the importance of safety, accountability, and ethical behavior. The road ahead will be long and difficult, but it's a journey we must take together. We must demand better from corporations, from regulators, and from ourselves. We must strive for a world where profits never come before people, where safety is paramount, and where justice is served. Never again. Lessons from the Boeing tragedy. The Boeing 737 MAX crashes were a tragedy, a wake-up call that shook the aviation industry to its core. But they were also a lesson, a stark reminder that even the most technologically advanced machines are only as good as the people who build and operate them. The crashes exposed the dangers of corporate greed, the importance of regulatory oversight, and the devastating consequences of prioritizing profits over safety. They taught us that trust, once broken, is not easily repaired, and that accountability is essential for preventing future tragedies. As we move forward, let's carry the lessons of this tragedy with us. Let's demand better from corporations, from regulators, and from our elected officials. Remember to like and subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned to JM Today for more stories like this one.